Ask any common man or woman what the best family sedan for the money is, and you're bound to get a multitude of answers. Ask that same question to the world statistically, and the answer keeps coming back to the Toyota Camry. Now, a lot of us have heard what the internet has said about the Camry over the years. It's boring, it's plain, it's plebeian, and it looks like every other car on the road. And even I myself was inclined to agree with that statement until I saw this one. You gotta love it when you finally get what you think is a day that's gonna be just perfect for driving a car that, quite frankly, I've been wanting to get behind the wheel of for some time, and Mother Nature decides, nope, I'm gonna make it rain on you all day. Oh well, such is life. Anyways, before I actually tell you what it's really like to drive the 2025 Toyota Camry, well, let me just kind of get some journalistic stuff out of my system. Okay, the first big eye-watering tear shed is that there is no more V6 Camry, and that really makes me upset because I loved the 2GR FKS when it was put into the Camry TRD. Well, the Camry TRD, we haven't seen anything even in the works for this new generation, so we're kind of resorting to a couple of different options. All of them are hybrids, unfortunately, but that does mean a little bit better efficiency and hopefully just a little bit more poke because, as we've seen, electric power does somewhat lend a helping hand when it needs to. Now, the one I've got here is an XLE all-wheel drive, and that's where you get the most power because you're looking at 232 net system horsepower, and quite frankly, it doesn't feel like it needs any more. The efficiency is all there. I mean, yeah, the engine can be a little bit buzzy when you start getting this thing up into its power band, but all the same, road noise is pretty well diminished. It's got great visibility in here, and it's very comfortable. It's just a great car to drive overall. Okay, now that I've got all of that out of my system, let me get down to the real good stuff. So the EPA, when they stick their noses into this little efficiency game, says that this car will get 46 in the city, 46 on the highway. That sounds like a pretty good number, but I've actually blown that completely out of the water just driving this car around for a day or so. I've gotten up to 56 miles to the gallon on one trip. And I'm gonna tell you right now, that is gonna pay huge dividends when it comes to paying at the pump. Now, obviously, we know gas prices are fluctuating right now, but the fact that this car is now following in the footsteps of, say, the new generation Honda Accord and basically making every single trim level available hybrid, it does start to make a little more sense. And the thing is, as I'm driving this car, I don't feel like I need to treat it like a Ferrari, that I need to go everywhere at 80 miles an hour. This thing is perfectly content just sitting right at the speed limit. And I mean, where I'm sitting right now, the seats are a little bit on the firmer side that I would like them. I mean, yes, they do have their good moments, but all in all, it just feels like a really just good, solid built place to be. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel lackluster. I mean, it may not be the quietest car I've ever driven, and it's certainly not the cheapest car I've ever driven either. The one I'm sitting in right now, with optional add-ons added in, if I can say things correctly, sits at just over $41,000. So I can only imagine what would happen if you stepped up to something like an XSE all-wheel drive with options added on. These cars just don't get any cheaper nowadays, do they? Okay, see, that's weird. Now I've gotten off the freeway, I'm on city streets, and I'm just driving this car in electric mode. And I know at any minute the motor's gonna try to kick in because the batteries can only take you so far. But I feel now it's smoothened out. It's a little more what I expect from a car, not only of this price tag, but just in general. I don't want it to be loud and obnoxious, but I don't want it to feel like I'm sitting, in a blender, for example, just that constant buzz and roar, or whatever kind of noise description you want to give it. I like it like this. I can only imagine what would happen if Toyota made a full-on electric one of these. That'd be interesting. And what's wild about this car being a hybrid is you would think with all of the extra add-ons with the batteries and electric motors and all that stuff combined with the gas engine and this electronic CVT, which it's gotten a little better, but it's still not my favorite transmission out there. You'd think this car would be like in an episode of Star Trek, do the lean, that kind of thing, but it's not. It's actually very well composed for a mid-size sedan. The suspension is great. It's kind of soft. Not really squidgy. Like I said, it doesn't really throw itself all over the road, but it just feels compliant. It feels like what anyone would think of in a mid-sized car. It's not harsh or stiff. I know I use those words a lot, but it's really not. I mean, the only thing that I'm really starting to kind of get annoyed by right now is that at slower speeds, it felt okay. But now getting up to highway speeds, 65, 70 miles an hour, it's starting to get just a tad noisy in here. I think that's always been, I guess, the Camry's Achilles heel for me. I mean, yes, a lot of people say, oh, that car's too quiet, or it's quiet enough for me. For me personally, it's rattling my eardrums just ever so slightly. Other than that, though, I mean, it's got enough poke if you need to get around another car. It's just a great all-around vehicle. Feels well screwed together. I don't know what else I can really say about it. From an outward perspective, the Camry definitely looks like it has matured and been modernized a lot more compared to its prior generation. But this being a hybrid completely across the range, aerodynamics and efficiency is the name of the game. So the hood comes down to this beautiful slope here, allowing the air to slip right up over the top. You've got the air pockets or air skirts going through the front corners. You've got the split level grille here with these sort of little nostrils up in the top. And of course, a gargantuan grille across the bottom, a very kind of distinct Toyota shape that we've seen over the years. And also, with the grille being finished in a dark gray, it is a gorgeous contrast to what is one of the most unique colors I've ever seen on a Camry, the Ocean Gem Metallic. And I'm feeling a little bit of deja vu at this moment because this could very easily be the exact same car that I took a first look at back at the Houston Auto Show earlier this year. So it's nice to have it not only back on camera, but also back in my care for a little bit longer than just a few minutes. But also, I'm seeing a little bit of a family resemblance with this car because things like the curvature of those full LED headlights with auto high beam assist, your LED daytime running lights, and so on. Again, the design of the grille and just a lot of elements in general feel like they've been taken directly from the brand new Toyota Prius. But that's not really a bad thing because I love the design of the Prius in general, and I love it even more now that they've taken that same flavor and added it here to the Camry. Now, again, being over $40,000, technology is plentiful. Park assist, dynamic radar cruise control, forward collision warning, forward cross traffic alert, pretty much anything you want is all here, including a nice little 360 camera that sort of provides that little septum here in the middle of the two nostrils up at the top. Now, unlike cases in the past where some of these sedans have grown by exponential amounts from generation to generation, for the new Camry, the design is a lot less obvious. This new model is about an inch longer than the one it replaces from 2024, and I have looked this car end to end, and it is so hard for me to find where that extra little inch goes in. But speaking of extra, for this XLE, I'm loving the choice of what Toyota has done for the wheels here. The machine face with gloss black inserts on these 18-inch alloys, just perfect. Not only that, 235/45 series Bridgestone tires to wrap them up, and I really think, going back to just the paint color, for example, that they really befit this car in just the right way. Now, while even this XLE's $35,000 base price gets you a pretty stylish car to begin with a little bit more curvature going here along the doors, it isn't until you start dipping into this car's options list on even something like this, and it not only starts to get a lot more pricey, but it also starts to make the car come into its own a little bit more, if you will. So you want things like that panoramic monitor with the camera in the nose and the two underneath each mirror, or you want rear cross-traffic braking that coincides with this car's standard blind spot monitoring and rear cross-traffic alert. On the XLE, those are part of an almost $5,000 Premium Plus package that thankfully has been installed here on my test car. And for that same wedge of cash, you also get a panoramic glass glass moonroof. Now, I love how this adds a much nicer styling element to the car, but as I've said in previous reviews before, it doesn't quite put my mind at ease, being the fact it goes pretty much from roof rail to roof rail, and there's not too much of the body structure going on up here. So that means, should either the sunroof decide to grenade itself on its own, or perhaps you have the unfortunate incident of getting into an accident, this is prone to breaking a lot more. So whether you want that or not is completely up to you, but what I'm happy to see is a little bit more of an updated version of Toyota's advanced keyless access. Now, it's not updated in the way it works, but I'm happy to see that Toyota actually put the Camry nameplate on the back of their usual key fob. It's been a complaint of mine forever, and now they finally have, and I'm so happy to see that. But you still have the usual suspects: lock, unlock, trunk, panic, and even the releasable key blade that comes out of the bottom of the fob should either the fob or the car itself go dead. And of course, getting in and out, it's the same as before. You want to lock it, just lay your finger to the front edge of the handle, and then of course to get in, you just grab the handle as normal. Now, while looking at the back end of a car like this is definitely not something to whet your appetite a little bit, when it comes to the Camry, I gotta say they've smartened it up in just the right way. I love the lip on the top of the trunk, the C-shaped LED taillights sort of giving me like a slimmed down 10th generation Honda Accord or Subaru Legacy sort of vibe, but again, both good cars in their own right, so I can't really complain about that. There are badges everywhere on the back of this car as well, so things like hybrid electric vehicle. I do like the nice little touch with that multicolored little circle there on the corner. Of course, this one being all-wheel drive, you gotta add that in there as well. You've got Camry spelt out across the middle of the trunk here, but it's a very subtle rear end. It's not really something to grab your attention in the most extreme way. I mean, the lower bumper has been slimmed off, no fake exhaust finishers. You got the park assist sensors across the middle. So while it's not the most in-your-face ass end I've ever seen, it's definitely not the worst one either. Now, remember how I said this car has grown about an inch longer compared to before? Well, I would have thought they would have used that extra little bit of growth in a more utilitarian aspect, but no, you open the trunk on this brand new redesign and there is the exact same amount of space, to the 10th, as there was in 2024. 15.1 cubic feet of space, to be precise. But there was a little bit of a surprise hiding in the back of this car, because under this car's carpeted floor mat is a compact spare tire and a full associated toolkit. So thank God Toyota is not on board with the idea of just throwing a fix-a-flat kit back in here and calling it a day. And even better, if I were to fill this trunk with all kinds of odds and ends, like this decorative picture that my girl and I picked up for our apartment, or a light little grocery shopping trip, or maybe even my bulky little camera bag here, well, all of that aside, there's still enough space for at least a couple of compact suitcases back here, or maybe even one extra large one if that's the way you like to travel. So if you're worried about the Camry losing out on any form of utility because it's brand new, you need worry no more. Now, getting into the interior of a Toyota Camry, if past experiences are anything to go by, usually invites a feeling of this is just kind of an average place to be. There's nothing really exciting about it, right? Well, I have to say for this new one, my tune has started to change a little bit, because Toyota actually did really put kind of some thought into this. You could still see a few elements of the prior generation in here, but for the most part, they've changed it in a little bit of a better sense. For starters, I love the seats in this XLE model. They're leather and heated and cooled, but they also have these weird little Dynamica inserts here in the bolsters, and the same treatment has been given to portions of the dash and along the door. I'm not gonna lie, looking at the door panels in the dash, it kind of looks like it was made out of old recycled newspapers, but that's the way Toyota wants to go, and quite frankly, I'm on board for a little bit more of something unique. But then, you make yourself comfortable, look right in front of you, and you've got a leather-rimmed and heated steering wheel. The grips are incredibly comfortable. The buttons being stacked vertically for Toyota safety sense, multimedia ancillaries, gauge cluster adjustments, you name it. I love it, and I've gotten so much more used to it as I've tested more of Toyota's newest products. One of my other favorite things, before we go any further, is the ability to switch between the dynamic radar cruise control and regular cruise using the mode button here in the Toyota Safety Sense cluster. I think that's a little bit more of a smart idea on Toyota's part, because not everybody likes the computer interfering with their drive in general. But speaking of interfering, or I guess possibly not interfering, you look right up from the middle of the steering wheel and there's this little hump right in front of the gauge cluster. That is not there to be stylistic. That is there because it is a driver facial monitor. I'm not joking. You want to lean one-handed, or perhaps you start looking out the window at something interesting, or perhaps you suffer the dreaded feeling of falling asleep at the wheel. That is there so that first you kind of get an alert, then it will smack the brakes on to wake you up and bring you back to your senses. Is it necessary? Not really, but I think in today's day and age, with us becoming a little bit of a lazier generation, that might actually come in handy. But then, talking about that gauge cluster, it is one of two 12.3-inch screens that I have in this car's interior. And honestly, they're the same gauges I've seen in every other Toyota product. I've seen them in the Grand Highlander. I've seen them just about everywhere. They're pretty warm and inviting. They're fully adjustable. It does everything you want, but nothing really extra. Kind of the theme of the interior, right? But then, your gaze shifts from what's in front of you to the middle, and there is yet another, like I said, 12.3-inch high-definition screen. Now, what the big deal is with this is it contains Toyota's newest telematics. Of course, navigation, wireless Android Auto, wireless CarPlay, literally anything you could think of is all contained inside of the screen. The panoramic monitor, fully adjustable as you would expect, but then the Premium Plus package that I mentioned earlier starts to interfere with that just a little bit as well, because while there's normally a 6-speaker audio system standard on the XLE, this one upgrades it to a 9-speaker JBL Premium audio system. Never had a problem with JBL before, and I certainly don't have a problem with this one.
Yo, stay focused, man's on a mission. Wavy like the ocean, ain't got time for inhibition. Eyes on a prize, lock it in your vision. Straight up, man, that's gotta make a decision. Stay focused, man, I gotta go. Can't be going backwards, I can't be going slow. Gotta take the lead and I gotta steal the show. So straight up madness, you know how we roll.
And if you can look past, like I said, the elements of slightly older Toyotas in here, like the gear selector and the mode selector and EV mode and all that stuff, it is still a very sort of ergonomic yet simple interior design. The climate controls, for example, fully digitized. You have dual zone system, as I said before, and normally the XLE comes with heated seats, but as I said on this test car, we have the optional ventilated seats, again part of that Premium Plus package. Down below, if you want to charge your phone, not only do you have a Qi wireless charger in this case, you have one USB and two USB-Cs in order to take care of your phone charging needs. But if you need anything else, I mean, there's a couple of cup holders, there's a decent sized storage here in the middle, and quite frankly, that's about it. Now, if being a rear seat occupant is your preference rather than being up front where there's a lot more going on, well, back here, it's, again, kind of the same thing. It's not exactly an extravagant place to be, but there's still enough back here to at least keep you happy. To start with, I'm right around 6 feet tall, maybe 6'1" if the doctor says I am. And as you can see, with the driver's seat in its optimal position, thanks to the memory seat function that I actually didn't mention earlier, you can see I actually have a decent amount of room between my knees and the back of the seat. Thankfully as well, if you are a little bit taller than me, well, the back of the seats not only have a bit of give, but they also are trimmed in the same leather as pretty much the rest of the seats. You've got a couple of map pockets back here, which is handy for storage. You've got one USB, one USB-C, a couple of air vents, and if perhaps you want to make things a little more comfortable, there's a simple armrest with a couple of nice cup holders just for such an occasion. And just like that, this now concludes our review and drive of the all-new 2025 Toyota Camry XLE all-wheel drive. Now, to kind of put those caveats to bed from earlier, is this car boring? Well, depends on your point of view, but for me, no. Is it plebeian? Well, I certainly wouldn't think so, especially not looking like it does. And does it look like every other car on the road? Well, you be the judge of that one from yourself, because for me, I think this is definitely one of the better looking Camrys that I've actually seen on the roads to date. And that's definitely saying something considering there's been umpteen amount of generations of them. But if you guys have enjoyed learning stuff about the new Camry, or perhaps you're stopping by the channel for the first time, give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit the subscribe button down below, because trust me, without partnerships like Toyota USA, and without people like yourselves watching these artistic car reviews as much as I can put them out, nothing like this would exist at all. But in the end, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.